I haven't seen a lot of movies in my life, which is probably why I have so many terrible movie takes. But this year I decided to watch more movies than I ever have before. And well, I would say I succeeded, because in this single month, I watched 18 movies. So close to 20. And that's crazy for me, because I don't think I watched 18 movies all of last year. And a lot of these movies were really great, and I really fell in love with movies this month. And hell, I've even accumulated a list of like 100 movies I need to watch now. However, some of these movies were not so great. So today, I'm gonna rank every movie I watched this month from worst to best, and I'm also gonna give it a rating out of 5 stars. I watch movies from all different genres and eras, so you'll probably see one of your favorites on here. I can't promise to give it a good rating though. But before we start the ranking, I gotta admit, I'm not a movie critic or a film bro. I'm just a casual watcher like anyone else. So if you disagree, don't take my opinion all that serious. But my takes are the best takes out there. Starting off, we have our low tier movies. Thankfully, most of the movies I watched this month were pretty good, if not amazing. However, there were some stinkers. So at number 18, and easily the worst movie I watched this month, is Sonic 2. Growing up, I was a huge Sonic fan. And I honestly was pretty excited to go watch the second Sonic movie, as I've seen the first one back in 2020. Though I didn't remember much from that first movie, I did remember it being enjoyable enough. And I really thought the second movie was going to be pretty similar. I was wrong. But this movie is just boring, man. And the human characters, as expected, were awful. Where they have this fake wedding plot, and all these no-name characters get involved with the main story. But who the hell cares about any of these characters? For the humor, the movie was pretty unfunny, and most jokes did not land. And I get it's a kid's movie, but that doesn't mean your jokes have to suck. Okay, there was some funny moments. Doctor. And then for the characters that we actually care about, Sonic was fun, Knuckles and Tails were solid additions, even though Tails does absolutely nothing. And Jim Carrey did a great job as Eggman. My main gripe with this movie is the fact that it's over 2 hours long. There's absolutely no reason for this movie to be this long, especially since so much time is wasted on these human characters and these other plot lines that no one cares about, and that could easily be removed. Overall, this movie had its brief moments, and our main cast was fun enough, I guess, but I'm still gonna give this movie a 2 out of 5 stars. Next up, we have a critically acclaimed movie that is much different than our last one, that movie being The Talented Mr. Ripley. Unlike the Sonic movie, I can't say this movie isn't well made. This movie stars Matt Damon, and he does an incredible job acting this movie. Unfortunately, I just couldn't get into the movie, and I did not care for the plot or any of these other characters. It was just too long, and most of the time these characters just feel obnoxiously oblivious to what's happening. So I'm already starting off with a hot take, but I'm giving this movie 2 out of 5 stars. I just gave this movie the same rating as the Sonic 2 movie. So now that I've got the film bros' attention with my terrible takes, this next one's gonna get you guys even worse. At number 16, and really the last movie in the low tier, I have Taxi Driver. This movie is directed by Martin Scorsese, and it's said to be one of his best. I can really appreciate what this movie does. The gritty 70s New York setting that we're in is great. And the idea of male loneliness and sanity discussed in this movie is revolutionary, especially for the time when this movie came out. Hell, this movie's even got some funny moments in there. But the second half of this movie completely lost me. And I really did struggle to resonate with our main character. And I really struggled to see how anyone could. So with that said, I'm giving this movie 2.5 out of 5 stars. Alright, I know those first 3 movies were all pretty below average and pretty mid. But these next movies are definitely much better and are all pretty solid films. And the first movie in our solid movie tier is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. This is the first Harry Potter film in the series, and I honestly really enjoyed it. I would even say it's better than the first book, which I read right before watching this movie. This movie is just quite charming. Seeing our main cast getting thrown into this beautifully created wizard world is just a fun watch. I also found this movie was paced much better than the book was, with still having a full story while removing unnecessary details and plot points. Oh, and the score of this movie is just iconic at this point. I've heard great things about the later books and movies, so I'm excited to watch those through the coming months. 3 out of 5 stars for this movie. Then at number 14, we have our first 2025 film, One Battle After Another. This movie to me is the definition of a solid watch. The characters were pretty compelling, and overall the plot was pretty interesting. But to me, there wasn't a single aspect of this movie that really wowed me. Not any crazy twists or any crazy plot points. It just felt like another film to me. There wasn't any really unique or cool qualities to this film. Like even some of the lower tier films on this list have their own uniqueness to it. whereas this movie didn't really have that. It's not a film I really care to go rewatch, and for that reason, I can't rate it any higher than where it is now. But it's still a solid film, so I'll give it 3 stars. Then next up we have Call Me By Your Name, starring Timothée Chalamet. Now Chalamet is a face we'll see later into this list also, but in this movie, he puts up an incredible performance. This movie takes place in Italy, and overall the setting is really refreshing. The themes of love and heartbreak are also really well developed within this movie. This is definitely the most emotional film I think I've talked about so far. But trust me, it's gonna get a lot sadder as we go through this list. I'm not gonna act like this is the most exciting movie ever, nor is it the most climactic movie ever. But it was just an enjoyable watch with a nice story. And the acting was just great too. So I'm gonna give this movie 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next up, we're moving on to our great tier of movies. All these movies are incredible and have only a few flaws. A lot of the movies I watched this month fit into this category. And starting off our great tier, at number 12, we have Waves, a 2019 A24 film. I'd seen a lot of talk about this film on social media, and the first half was pretty much what I expected, but the second half took a really unique and great shift that I didn't expect. This movie is really tragic, and the viewer and the characters don't really get the ending that they wanted, and that really just goes along with the film's theme of regret and how we only have today. This film also features a really unique soundtrack, featuring artists like Frank Ocean and Kid Cudi. Now this is definitely one of the more controversial parts of the film, as it feels like they kind of cheap out in some scenes by including these songs. And though it is often fitting and refreshing to hear this music within this movie, it also can take away from some of the scenes. So overall, I would say the soundtrack is a net negative, and it oftentimes feels forced. Overall, despite those flaws, I would still say this is a great film. A 4 out of 5 stars. Next up, we have another 2025 film, and this one's a Netflix film. This film being Train Dreams. This might just be the most beautifully shot film on this list, which is crazy to say because it's a Netflix movie. And this movie went really under the radar, as it was released on Netflix at the end of the year when everyone was freaking about Stranger Things. This movie just follows an ordinary man in the early 19 to mid 1900s. A man who is a logger and a railroad worker with a wife and a kid that he rarely ever gets to see because of his work. But after a tragic event, we have to watch this man navigate his life without his loved ones. It truly is an emotional film, and though it may not have the most action or dialogue, it tells a beautiful story. And I really did love the ending of this movie, and though it is a shorter movie, it does tell a complete story. I'm giving this movie 4 stars. Now entering the top 10, we have The Perks of Being a Wallflower. This movie's become pretty iconic, with a bunch of iconic quotes and moments. And it really is just a heartwarming movie. Following a boy who's gone through a lot of trauma, has struggled with bullying, and really hasn't been able to find his group going into high school. But once he does eventually find that group, this becomes one of the most charming films I've ever seen. And the scene with heroes playing at the end is just so peak and will bring a smile to anyone's face. Or tears. And I'm not gonna act like it's the most grand or complex movie ever. It is pretty cliche and even feels like a Disney Channel movie at sometimes. So those things do limit me from putting it any higher than where it is right now. But it's still a great film. 4 out of 5 stars. Then next up we have a much different film. We have 1991's Boys in the Hood. This movie takes place in Los Angeles, California, in a neighborhood that's been taken over by gang activity and gun violence. And we watch our main character, Trey, grow up in this neighborhood and combat this environment that he's put into. When despite Trey's father instilling values of honesty, hard work, and respect into him, he often is drawn into the wrong crowds. There really is a lot to learn about manhood within this film, and even some of the critiques of society are still seen today. Ideas like avoiding the wrong crowd or avoiding never-ending revenge, as that gets no one anywhere. A great film with great ideas, compelling characters, and an overall great plot. 4 out of 5 stars. Now our next movie actually released the same year, and it also follows some similar ideas. This movie being A Bronx Tale. Now this movie is actually pretty controversial, as the acting isn't really all that great, and some scenes feel really cliche or forced. But I gotta be honest, I really enjoyed this film, and I really liked the 1990s New York setting that we're in. And again, our main character, Sonny, is left with the hard decision of choosing his father's honest and hard work, or going with the wrong crowd. Except in this case, even the viewer is conflicted on which choice is the best, as oftentimes, the idea of the working man being a sucker does feel really real in this movie. I thought this film was really great, and though I can see how it lacks in some areas, I still thought it was a great watch, and it had a heartbreaking ending. Then at 7, we have Man on Fire, starring Denzel Washington. In this movie, we see our main character take on the job as a bodyguard for a wealthy family in Mexico. And Dakota Fanning, who plays the daughter of this wealthy family, puts up one of the best child actor performances I've ever seen. And in the early parts of this film, we get to see Denzel Washington make a connection with this young girl. And it's overall just a charming watch. However, the dark shift in the second half shows the reality of what is taking place in Latin America and the corruption within it, with a totally heartbreaking ending. This movie is also shot in a unique way, not like any other movie I've ever seen. And the score was also incredible. I would give this movie 4 out of 5 stars as well. Very little flaws with it. Okay, I get this is getting pretty redundant as these past few movies have been peak. But one thing I'm beginning to realize is a lot of these movies are older movies. But I'm beginning to think that these older movies are just better than newer movies. And it's pretty rare to find any good movies nowadays. At least that's what I would say if the next movie up didn't come out just last month. That movie being Marty Supreme. I went to this movie expecting a table tennis movie, but this movie was way more than that. And this was also the only movie that I got a chance to see in theaters this month. And talk about a fun watch. And Timothée Chalamet, despite having so many incredible performances, this might just be his best one. And just watching Marty chase his dream after facing obstacle and obstacle throughout this movie is not only a fun watch, but it's quite motivational as well. And inclusions of Tyler the Creator and Mr. Wonderful are not only fun, but they're also pretty solid actors. And that goes pretty much for the acting throughout this entire film. Every actor puts up a great performance, and it works so well for this movie. My only critique is, the second half does drag on a little bit, and it does feel like some plot points are left hanging at the end. However, I think this is done on purpose. And there also was some unnecessary scenes. So for those reasons, that limits me from putting this movie any higher, but it's still 4 out of 5 stars. But it is also the first movie left out of our final tier, the peak movies tier. All the movies I'm about to talk about are damn near perfect, with little flaws at all. And starting off, we have Pulp Fiction, directed by Tarantino. This film is really unique, as the story is split into 3 parts, but it all comes together to create one full story. This movie's just fun, man. Not only because the plot is great, because these actors are putting up great performances, and the script is just amazing. And honestly, if we were basing it just off entertainment value, this movie might be number 1 for this month. I also really enjoyed how this movie ended the way it started. I thought that was a great twist to it. My only critique is, I did find the second part did drag on at some points, especially with Bruce Willis's character and some exposition that was given, that I felt was unnecessary. But it's still a fun movie with some incredible acting and great dialogue, and it's pretty funny. I'm gonna give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. At number 4, we have easily the saddest movie on this list. That being The Iron Claw. I'll be honest, I was unsure going into this movie. I didn't really care for wrestling, and I still really don't. But I realized this movie is much more than a wrestling movie. This film covers the Von Erich family, a family I didn't know much about before this film. And this film is tragedy after tragedy, and it does not give you any time to rest. Yeah, and the father of the Von Erich brothers will have you wanting to punch your TV. The way he treats his sons as products and tools is truly tragic. He also doesn't seem to understand or care to understand the problems that have plagued his sons that have led to the tragedies that they have faced. And the fact that this movie is based on a true story, and the fact that the true story is even more tragic, makes it all the worse. And the ending scene will just leave you staring blankly at your screen. Or bawling your eyes out. This movie's just incredible. 4.5 out of 5 stars. And now we're in the top 3. These are some of the greatest films I've ever seen in my life. And starting off the top 3, we have a little bit of a different film. This is an animated movie. And this movie is Pixar's Soul. Now, I watched this movie for the first time in quarantine when it first came out. But honestly, I didn't remember much from it. I thought it was overall a good film, but I didn't think it was amazing. But on this rewatch, I really got to learn a lot from this film. Very rarely do you see kids' movies delve into the topics of life and finding happiness. And in this movie, we get to learn with our main character that finding happiness in life isn't by finding your one single spark or purpose, or reaching that fulfilling moment within your career. It's about enjoying the everyday things that you face, the opportunities, the challenges, and the loving moments. And it's just a beautiful film with incredible characters and great dialogue. And the animation is just beautiful as well. My only critique is it does drag on in the beginning parts, but once it gets going, you can't stop watching this film. It's truly beautiful. And though it is a kids movie, it doesn't feel like it's limiting itself because of that. And this movie went pretty under the radar because it released during quarantine. But it really is one of Pixar's, if not Pixar's best. But moving on to these last 2 films, I've flipped which one's number 1 over and over. But I've decided that number 2 is Memento, directed by Christopher Nolan. This film had me hooked, mainly due to the fact that the creative use of storytelling is nothing like I've seen before. In this movie, we follow our main character, who after the tragic loss of his wife, faces short-term memory loss. And due to that reason, the viewer and the main character have to piece the movie together as it plays out. And it's honestly a film I'm super excited to go rewatch after seeing how it plays out fully, just to catch the details and try to understand the story even more. Overall, the twist and the mystery within this movie is just so captivating to watch. And sure, this movie isn't that grand on scale and it doesn't really leave you with any life lessons. It's just a captivating and super unique movie to watch. And it's super entertaining because of that. But finally, our last movie to talk about, and the #1 movie I watched this month, was The Hateful Eight, directed by Quentin Tarantino. Just absolute peak. Tarantino has done it again, and he outdid himself from Pulp Fiction, which I didn't even think was possible. This is a pretty dialogue-heavy movie, especially in the beginning part. But once it gets going, it does not stop. And since the acting, the dialogue, and the overall script is just amazing, it never feels like the movie is moving too slow or drags on. And this movie does not fear the use of violence at all. And my favorite part about this movie is the fact that none of these characters are inherently good or bad. All of them are pretty terrible people, and when they're all thrown in one room, it causes a lot of violence and a lot of problems, which creates an incredible story. And again, there's no life lessons to be taken away from this movie, but that's fine because of the captivating story it tells. It's hard to find a movie that gets you this hooked. And to me, this is the closest movie to perfection I saw all month. Anyway guys, that's my ranking for all 18 movies I watched this month. A lot of these movies are pretty popular, and it's probably downright crazy that I haven't seen most of these movies before watching them this month. And it really hit me this month that there's an endless amount of movies to watch within my lifetime, and most of which I'll never get to watch. So if you were like me before this year, and you spent so much time doom scrolling and watching YouTube instead of watching movies, go watch some movies. Even if they suck like Taxi Driver, at least you'll get to say you've seen them. So if you're not a movie watcher like me, go watch some movies.